Good morning. It's October 17th, 2024. We're critiquing the news. The article on your screen is from the Cairns Post. It's titled Leaders Lock Debate Horns, and it's about a one-on-one debate that the leader of the LNP branch and the leader of the ALP branch had somewhere down south. Really, I completely missed this one until it popped up in the Cairns Post, but there you go. The part of the article that I find interesting is the part about the current voting system that Queensland has. And to quote from the article, Mr. Crisafulli also reiterated the LNP's vow to overturn an unexpected manoeuvre by the state Labor government in 2016, which resulted in full preferential voting being returned to Queensland. Now, full compulsory preferential voting is a very sneaky way to turn a majority of Conservative votes into an election win for the left, and most people are too busy to analyse how that's done. It boils down to votes that are exhausted when a voter's second and or third preference candidates have already been eliminated because they received the fewest votes. Those votes are removed from the total votes cast, which means that the remaining candidates only need to get 51% of a smaller number of votes. The system relies on the tendency of so-called protest voters to give their first preference to an emerging party and their second preference to one of the two branches of the legacy ALP-LNP uni party in order to prevent their least favoured uni-party branch winning on preferences. It's highly likely that returning to optional preferential voting would see the far left and globalist parties eliminated permanently, which is why they will never support it. And I drafted out a description of how this might work. Say we had optional preferential or first past the post voting, and if it was optional preferential, nobody chose to give preferences because presumably there'd been some sort of education campaign and everyone understood how it worked. And say we had a far northern electorate where people were thoroughly disgusted with both the Liberals during the period 2020 to 2023 and Labor during that period at the state level and since then, and as well as at the federal level. And there was 5 candidates for this election in this hypothetical electorate: One Nation, Katter, Labor and the Liberals. One Nation got 10,000 votes, and each of the others got 1,000 votes less than the preceding party for the total in the electorate, which is quite typical of 40,000 votes. That would be a One Nation win with a first-past-the-post system. Now, the compulsory preferential system requires one candidate to get to 51% of the vote total. So, in this example, the Greens got the fewest on 6,000, so their 6,000 votes, their 6,000 voters rather, all chose to preference Labor because they're the most socialist, and the second most socialist is Labor, and that launches Labor into the lead above One Nation with 14,000 votes, and the Greens, they just languish down the bottom here. Now, the second redistribution, because nobody has yet won 51%, sees the Liberals' preferences redistributed. And in this particular electorate, 3,900 voters gave Katter their preference and 3,100 voters gave One Nation their preference. Nobody gave Labor or the Greens their preference because they just weren't that socialist. So that puts Katter then on 12,900, One Nation on 13,100, and Labor is still in the lead on 14,000 votes. Here's where it gets interesting. We get to the third redistribution. So the Katters were now the party in last place, so their votes are redistributed. 7,400 go to the Liberals, 2,500 go to Labor, 2,400 go to One Nation, and 600 go to the Greens. All right? There's a logic to why I've laid that out that way, but to keep this brief, I'm not going to go through and describe it. So because the Liberals have already been extinguished and the Greens have already been extinguished, that means that there's now 8,000 exhausted votes. So these are dead votes, and they're taken from that 40,000 tally over here. So instead of the total Conservative vote being 26,000 as it was through the first 3 stages, it's now down to 32,000. The Conservative vote's down to 15,500, and the total votes are down to 32,000, which gives Labor 16,500, so that's their 14,000 from here, plus their 2,500 from Katter preferences. And again, Katter keeps telling people that he's of the hard left, that he's still a CFMEU member, so you'd expect some Labor and Greens voters to give him their second preference. And that leaves One Nation at 15,500 in second place, despite the fact that there was a majority Conservative voters here at 26,000. That's how this is how the compulsory preferential voting system works, and this is why Labor and the Greens, and to a lesser extent the Liberal Party, will fight to the death to keep it